So I realized this morning that I never recorded the slide that actually has the data on it, which was my whole point in recording this to begin with. So this is going to be Fruit Fly Eye Color Part 2. But it also now has the added bonus that if you didn't need to go through the prompt again, you can jump right into looking at the actual data. So we saw this yesterday, flies, different color eyes. We saw the pathway, we saw the data, we saw how they related to one another. So now we can look at the actual data that we collected. So this is actually the exact same data, it's just under two different types of light. So this here on the right is under white light, just in the classroom. And then this here is in the back prep room under ultraviolet light. You can see a little agar in the back. Clearly that was from the agar mitosis lab. This would have been the year that we forgot to order agar and I had to buy it at Whole Foods, which you can do because it's a gelatin substitute for people who are vegetarian or vegan. Just a little added information there. So this is the exact same strip, just under two different kinds of light, and the order of the eyes are the wild type, the scarlet, the sepia, and the white. And actually two things to note. One is that the brown pigment doesn't show up at all. It's just not, it's not soluble in the solvent that we used, and so you really can't see it. The second is that the blue is actually more of an ultraviolet. We call it blue, but you can only see it under ultraviolet light, which is why in this view we see kind of this bright glowy stuff that we don't see in this view. Okay? So first of all, if you notice the white, it doesn't matter what kind of light you look at it under, there's nothing there, right? And if we go back to our pathway, we see here, right, that makes sense that if there's no protein 6, then there's going to be no pigments, and so we're not going to see anything at all. But if we look at the scarlet, sorry, I had to look back. If we look at the scarlet, we see that scarlet knocks out enzyme 5, but there still should be the same amount of yellow, orange, and blue as the wild type. So scarlet's right here, right next to the wild type, and we can see that, right, they've got the same amount, or we can actually look over here at the orange. They've got the same amount of orange. It's a little tough to see, but there's a puff of yellow here and a puff of yellow here. It's a lot easier to see on the sepia where there's more yellow. You can see that really clearly here. And then if you look at the blue, there's the same amount of blue there as there. And some of you may be saying, well, it looks like there's more or less. Absolutely, but again, think about statistical significance, right? If you happen to mash more or less of an eye, you're going to get more or less of a pigment. So we're looking for about, right? Are these about the same amount? And we're seeing that absolutely for the blue, orange, and yellow, they are. Then if we look at sepia right next door, if we go back to sepia, we see sepia is a lack of orange pigment. And that means there should be more yellow and more blue. And then again, the brown doesn't show up in this kind of data collection. And that's exactly what we see. So we see here in the sepia, which is right here, we're seeing absolutely no orange, which is what we'd expect. There is a clear puff of yellow up here, right? So that is obviously more than we're seeing there. And then if we go over here to the blue, that again is clearly a lot more blue than you're seeing in the wild and scarlet. So that's where we could actually look at this map. We could make predictions as far as what we would see. So when we did this lab in class, this entire table here was actually your hypothesis. You were predicting what you would see, and then we collected the data in this manner. So that's how that all ties together, and you can see sort of a real concrete application of how all of these pathways work, but then also going back to here, how they then combine into one fruit fly color. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Have a good day.